Welcome in, everyone, to the inaugural episode of the Daily Tradr YouTube show that is yet to be named. We will think of another name for it. I'm your host, JP, or at JazzPlane on X or Twitter, and I am joined today by the owner of the Daily Tradr, the one and only IncomeSharks. Welcome in, sir.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for hosting the show.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for the opportunity, and we've got a lot of cool stuff to talk about today. Wanted to ask you first, tell me a little bit about the Daily Tradr. I know you've had the newsletter out for several weeks now, and kind of what your vision is for that and what the vision is for the YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, so part of Daily Tradr is I kind of wanted to build something where the community is able to give feedback, to kind of highlight traders, and to kind of do this whole thing like built for the community, by the community. Obviously, I've been kind of behind the newsletter to start, but ideally, I do want to transition and get a lot more people contributing and kind of help put spotlights to traders that maybe have smaller followings or don't typically have the following that other accounts do.
Have you noticed on X that a lot of times the kind of hidden gems are these accounts with, fewer followers who are much better traders? Or have you noticed it's mostly the people who have already made it with a lot of followers? Or I guess, do you have any in mind that you want to bring on?
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was thinking with this whole Daily Tradr is like, there are some really good traders that have been around for a long time. And like I said, they have maybe only 100 followers. They're not able to monetize their account. They're not able to do all these paid deals. So they actually do have to trade for a living. And I do think highlighting these traders over time would be a way better way to add value to the space than just keeping it the way it currently is, where somebody can maybe go viral, good or bad reasons, and then they're the one that get the spotlight and they maybe have no idea about how to trade. Like, for example, there's some accounts that maybe have hit one big meme trade, and then a year later, they're trying to give you financial advice and they're trying to share a lot of things that aren't really helpful and they weren't really meant to be as popular as they were in Twitter. So I think just kind of the whole idea behind Daily Tradr is just to really highlight some of these traders that would otherwise never be seen.
I think I've noticed a lot over the last couple of years who have kind of come out of the woodwork. And like you said, you'll always have the traders who, hit one good trade and then think that they're a huge expert, and then they give it all back. Talking about me. And then you'll have people who have actually been consistent with the winnings and are grinding away, earning a living doing trading, but may not be as widely known in the X sphere. So I think it's good that we'll give them a chance. And Speaking of trading, you've obviously been doing it for a while. And most people on this show or who are watching it probably know kind of the main markets that you trade, but wanted to ask you, what's your favorite one to trade right now?
Yeah, so obviously started with stocks. Crypto was the most fun to trade for the longest time because it was the true Wild West. There were so many new innovations and kind of trades and opportunities, but obviously the past couple of years that slowed down. So I have done a lot more stock trading. There's a lot more liquidity. There's a lot less rugs. There's a lot less to choose from. So it is kind of nice that I've been able to focus on that. I am hoping now that it's October, we do kind of see this pivot a little bit back to crypto, because that is still my bread and butter when it is hot. But something that's really important for traders to know is sometimes the markets aren't always going to be hot. Crypto, it's usually maybe 2 to 3 months a year where it's really hot. And those other months, it's kind of important to find other markets. So for me, focus is kind of stock market now, and the kind of side hustle is still crypto. And if there's ever a month, and like I said, possibly this month, I might focus a lot more attention back to crypto, but then kind of keep stocks as the main gig.
Crypto to me is so challenging because it requires the most attention. It's a 24/7 marketplace. The gains are potentially huge, even though stocks have been insane this year as well. So you're dealing with like exponentially more dopamine. But then, like you've told me, and other people have said this too, it's like you can only trade it maybe 2 months out of the year. And so you're getting hit with all that dopamine in those 2 months, and then you have to like stop for 8 months until the right season comes around. I think it can be really hard for people to do that, especially if they're sitting on 50x or 100x unrealized profits. Like it's hard to take all that off the table and then just sit on your hands for half a year. What have you noticed with regards to crypto Twitter about doing that or not doing that?
Yeah, I think you explained it really well. Like the dopamine rush in crypto is so intense and it is so exciting. Like when it is hot, it is lightning hot. But the biggest mistake is trying to find those months where nothing happens and you want that same rush, you want those same gains, and it's just not there. And that is something why I do really preach it a lot, but I preach a lot about boring trades, because part of surviving as a trader is you need to be really good at staying bored and entertained when the markets aren't that hot. So for me, like the stock, it's a good idea. You kind of find some companies, it's going to maybe not move as quickly. You're not expecting this dopamine rush, and you're able to kind of survive long enough until it starts getting hot, and then you can really push.
And what people, I think, and I've seen you say this sometimes in the comments as well, if you do hit a huge home run in crypto or even in stocks, parking that money and earning interest on it, in the interim between trading is not as terrible. It's not even terrible at all for, compared to what people believe about it. So if you made $1 million and you put it in a 4.5% account, like on Robinhood, it's just sitting there, you're earning $45,000 a year on that. And then that's another 45 grand you have to swing when the next hot season comes around. And I feel like people just, like I see it compared a lot to a casino. And I guess in your time in the markets, especially crypto, have you noticed it become kind of more of a casino, or has it leveled off, or is now as degen as it's ever been?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the issue right now. It is turned way into a casino. And I think it's even worse than a casino, because I think at a casino, sometimes you at least win. And there are people that have stuck around all year and they have lost 50 times in a row because the casino is so aggressive. There's so many market participants. It's very player versus player. And it's like there's now so much desperation that it's not even an enjoyable casino. It's almost like this last ditch effort. And so for me, that's kind of, I think I would have kind of leaned into it more if I stayed fully into crypto. And I think that's kind of nice to like back away with stocks, kind of reset. And like you said, with the APY, like it is really good to do nothing. And it's not that you're not making money, you're still going to make money. And people just, they want to always make these large amounts all the time, but that's how you lose large amounts as well. So I think just being able to sit on money, take advantage that you can make almost 5% doing nothing in these markets, and then wait until you actually have a trader opportunity, use even those profits, and you can really compound growth into something a lot larger.
You referenced that clip from The Gambler quite a bit. The bleep you money from John
Yes.
Goodman and Mark Wahlberg. The philosophy there is really good. Unfortunately, not as many people as I would. I mean, I would like to get to that point, but it's extremely hard to make that much money. But if you do, like if there were a hypothetical point where I made that much money, I would hope that I would have the clarity of mind to do what he says in that clip, which is, pay off your house, pay off your car, keep most of it in the bank, have enough coming in through interest to pay your taxes, and then just be happy in that you basically paid everything off that you need to. But most people, like we've seen on crypto Twitter, they just triple down or 10x down. It's like there's never enough. And I've seen you talk about like the curse of the nines. Yes. Like for me, I got hit by that last year. I was at a pretty good amount. I was almost to my first 6-figure portfolio. I think I was for me, it's the curse of the eights, because I didn't make it to nines. But you just chasing one more zero and you end up losing it all. Do you have any stories of that from personal experience, or have you seen like any friends or anyone else, or even just random people on Twitter that you've seen do that and you're like, oh
yeah,
God?
Yeah. I mean, so for me, like definitely, I mean, I think curses of 8 are just as popular as curses of 9. The first time I ran a portfolio up to the almost $1 million, it was just like, you're in striking distance. You want that million. And I pulled it back so substantially because you would just take so many risks toward the end. And I know sometimes it's hard for people to be told that when you're just winning and winning and winning, because once you get $1 million, also you're like, I can get to 10 million, 100 million. But the second you get to those milestones or even get close, you just don't trade the same. And it is just very hard because you expect like, oh, when you hit a certain amount, you'll slow down. And that's just not the case. And greed loves to show up, and addiction. And you just start realizing you'll never be happy with any amount. And so like we've said from like the show and other things, it's just so important to remember that, to look back, to realize how much money that is, and to be okay taking boring trades, because you're still going to make money. You can still make 20% a year, 10%. Like those are still substantial gains, but you don't need to always chase. And it's also not sustainable to keep chasing the same ways. What worked to get you there won't keep working, because the market conditions will always change. So you have to be very fluid with the market conditions, be hot when they're hot, be cold when they're cold. And that's how you can just kind of get past those curses and milestones.
I think what happened to me last year, from speaking from personal experience, is I had hit a couple of big X's in a row, and my mindset was, okay, just keep rolling those in to other things. But in the back of my mind, I knew that the peak from early November to late November was already starting to get close to the top. It wasn't like it was always going to be the 1st of November of 2024 forever. The conditions had changed in 3 weeks. So I needed to become more conservative as I got higher up on my portfolio value, but I kept getting more aggressive, and eventually things rolled over and I took the plunge with it. do you think sometimes when you think of new traders coming in now, do you think maybe it's bad to win too quickly, too early? Like if you hit 5 good trades in a row, you think you're a genius. Is it better just to kind of slog through some boring trades? Or I guess what advice would you give to new traders that are just now kind of entering the scene?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a curse or a problem with that as well. If you show up and you just out of the gates, win, you haven't experienced that loss yet. And I think sometimes starting and having a big loss can almost make you a better trader because you don't have to give back all that profits you made, but you've learned a valuable lesson. So I do think for new traders, and it's hard to understand that until you've gone through that mistake. But winning a lot early is just going to do a lot more damage because you just think that's normal. And then you take a big loss. You're like, well, that's okay. I'm going to just keep winning. I've done it before. And all of a sudden you're not. So I think it is really important if you're starting out new to understand that winning is short term. And you have to just really understand that it's not sustainable. Even if you're on I would say more people lose money going like 10 for 10 in a row in a streak. That 11th trade is probably going to be the one that undoes all of that versus somebody that like wins some, loses some, that kind of has a more balanced approach. And like I said, I'll keep repeating it, but just the boring traders. The boring traders, they don't win a lot, they don't lose a lot, but over time they do win. It's the second you start gambling and have huge wins. Every account I see with huge wins, they usually don't show them, but they're going to have massive losses as well. So I think it's more about having realistic expectations and keeping your losses as small as you can, because a small loss is easy to overcome, but a large loss is very difficult to overcome.
Yeah. I hear you on that. I've had to overcome large losses many times, and it doesn't get any easier. And you always say you're not going to be back in that situation again the next time, but invariably you find yourself back in the same position as you were, that you said you would never be in again. Wanted to ask you a few more questions here before we wrap up. As far as how crypto has been this year and what you're looking for in October. I know, I think you've told me before, October and November are probably, even just Q4 in general, it's probably the best time of the year to trade crypto. And we're just now entering October. Doesn't always start as hot as this October has today. The first day of October is today, and things were doing pretty good. Usually it's a little bit of a red day to fake people out, and then later in the month we move up hard and everyone gets left behind. So I guess first, do you think this October and November will be overall pretty good for crypto, or do you think we're looking at a bad time coming in?
Again, it's always tough. Sentiment kind of feels like it's going to be bad, but again, it's just like, it's one of those trades. You're just like, wow, how does it keep delivering every October, even when this many people expect it? And you do look a lot of stats from previous years is that almost every time September's been bullish, it's been like a double-digit year for October. So we've got that. September was not as bad as it has been, even though a lot of people might feel like it's been bad. Bitcoin's loved October like 9 out of 10 times it's been green. So I think there's just enough of a narrative that even people are skeptical or think it's too much of an overcrowded trade. I do think it's like the sentiment's been for a long time that people are ready to be like, hey, I want an excuse to buy. They're maybe more willing to take risks. And so I do think like this October, if all goes planned, that should at least be one that's a lot more bullish than September, which again, September actually was pretty good for some of the larger cryptos like Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Yeah. And it's funny. Everyone on Twitter and X keeps trying to say that it won't be good because everyone expects it to be good. And I'm always like, well, who is everyone? Like, is that like 2 people that you saw online? I feel like this entire year for crypto, and really not just this year, but like the last 2 or 3 years, it's been people just wanting to argue about, well, does everyone expect this? Then it can't happen. Or does no one expect this? So it must happen. It's like there's these 2 binary points of view. And then the market has just kind of grinded slowly up and to the right, anyways. And so, do you think people have kind of been mid-curving this year like crazy? And do you think the market has performed that badly? I feel like Bitcoin and Ethereum have kind of just slowly grinded up, and there hasn't been these huge dips and rises, which seem to kind of suit those narratives.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. A lot of people are trying to say like, since everyone expects it, it's not going to happen. But since they expect that, then it will happen. And it's just this back and forth. If everyone is kind of confused, and it's almost like the most maximum pain scenario is for both to just keep slowly going up. The bears aren't making money shorting. People are too bored and impatient to keep holding, so they're chasing other things. So it is just like this perfect storm where these assets just keep going up. Not a lot of dopamine. People aren't making a ton of money, but in reality, had they just left money in those assets, not chase the memes, not chase the gambles, they actually probably would be better off. But again, it's just there's not these huge exciting 50% swings that we've had. It's just 5%, 5%. But again, over time, it's still, I think, close to outperforming the S&P, or it is being a good asset. Just people are, I think, upset that it hasn't performed like it has in a lot more of the volatile years.
Yeah, and I feel like one of the last things I wanted to ask you here too, people are always asking about the on-chain volume. Well, and I was showing a stat on my X a few weeks ago. The Ethereum on-chain DEX volume actually is not bad. It's pretty good. It's still, I think since September, it's actually, I haven't checked in a couple of weeks, but it was ahead of Solana. So it had retaken the first place, position as far as which chain has more DEX volume, which is, probably the best metrics that you can look at to see like where the alts are going or who's buying the alts and on what chain. Base has been pretty small compared to those two. But have you been surprised how, at least with some of the narratives that me and you have followed over the years, have you been surprised that ETH on-chain volume has seemed as low as it has, even if the numbers say it says that it's bigger than Solana, but it feels like some of the coins that we've seen over the years haven't moved as much as before.
Yeah, I think that is like a good point, because I also I used to track like Ethereum gas fees, and when they were really high, it was really active. So it is kind of like this weird shift. They've found a way to reduce Ethereum gas fees. So gas fees have stayed lower, and you would think, oh, it's because no one's using it, but actually, like you've said, like there is a lot of people using on chain. I think with all the secondary layers, like there is a lot of activity, but I think kind of the issue that meme coins still have is I think there's just so much dilution. There's still so many projects. So everything's kind of spread so thin that there is still a lot of people. There's a lot of activity, but it's not really concentrated. And I think that's maybe over time, it's not a bad thing that so many have stayed flat, that eventually you do see a few projects start running, especially in October. All the liquidity kind of gets sucked into those, and you do kind of start seeing, okay, this does match what we're seeing with the analytics, which are showing a lot more activity on chain than even we've had in previous years.
You've mentioned dilution too, and I agree 100% that there's just so many coins. I actually, for the first time in probably a year, I saw an Ethereum on-chain runner like going full parabolic on the higher time frame, like on the daily chart. I think it was Punkster, PNKSTR, which it's basically MicroStrategy, but for punks. They like basically buy the punks and resell them. That was the first one that I've seen all year that was really taking off and had pretty good volume. But it was like only like last year where you'd see maybe 4 or 5 of those a year, and that was normal. So it's been funny to not see that as much. And I feel like there's a pretty concentrated group of people on Twitter who are like the main shillers and the main buyers and sellers of coins like this. So people I've noticed have been much more aggressive taking profits, which in a funny way, compared to what we were saying earlier, it's like, that's what we've always said these people on Twitter should do. Like, instead of just gambling everything. Well, now it's like, okay, well, maybe don't do it that fast because we have to get in too. So the dynamics of Ethereum on chain have just been so weird this year.
Yeah, no, they really have. And it is funny, like, and maybe that's something what we need to do to start like a new bull run, is people are really aggressive with selling, taking profits early. That works for well. And then all of a sudden sellers get punished where tokens do go run a little farther, and then prices kind of go farther than people expect. And now these early sellers are punished. And that is usually what kicks off like the parabolic bull runs that we have seen before. Because it's been a while since we've kind of just seen weeks or months where a chart just can't go down. It goes up and up. Now it goes up, gets pushed down farther. And so I mean, hopefully maybe this Q4 will be finally the crypto bull run that feels like a bull run, even though, like we've said, a lot of things have actually gone up when you do look at the yearly chart.
Yeah, and one last question, since we're approaching 20 minutes here. I remember in November of last year, obviously Trump getting reelected was kind of seen as the main catalyst for a lot of those, a lot of the sentiment going through the roof. I mean, if you look at the charts back last year, November was when things just went straight vertical, and then kind of petered out in December and then fell off in January. Since there's not an election this year in November, does that, I don't want to say, does that concern you, but like, do you think maybe the dynamics of the market will be different, even though Q4 is still historically really good for crypto?
I think that's kind of fine. Like usually the first year of a president, it's kind of like their welcoming year. There's kind of changes. People are kind of uncertain, which can sometimes lead to negativity. But I think this one is just kind of like nothing's really happened, but a lot's happening. So I think that first year, I think we can carry that momentum for Q4. I mean, stocks today they went up to all-time highs again. Like there is this kind of like, it doesn't even feel like optimism. There's just kind of thing like, wow, stocks can keep going. Things are running.
Yeah.
It may take till next year where we do see kind of a significant pullback, which usually does happen in year 2. And then again, we have the elections, the midterms in October of next year, which often, again, if there's a big dip, that's usually when you can see it rally. And if you look at the stats for previous years, that happens a lot. And that could be another reason why, again, October just loves to be bullish, is that you either have elections one of the year, or you have midterms, or the 2 years where you finally don't have midterms and elections. It also has a chance for markets to run. So there just is something really magical about October. So hopefully by the end of this October, we'll be able to say, yep, that there is something, and not, oh no, this is the first one that kind of flopped.
Yes. Hopefully by the end of October of this year, I'll be break even again, as I was for the first of the year. That's always the goal, is get back to break even in October. So we have had 20 minutes today with IncomeSharks, and I hope he has given you some good information, maybe filled you with fear or filled you with hope, depending on what side of the coin you're on for trading. You can follow us both on Twitter at IncomeSharks and at JazzPlane, and we will be back next week with another guest, hopefully. We'll see what happens, but thank you all for joining us.